Hello everyone, no Monday blues for us because we've put together some exciting headlines from the startup space. I'm Priya Sheth and a very warm welcome to all of you to the Daily Dispatch. Now, the top three companies that have been in news today include Ola Electric, Snapdeal as well as Refin. Well, headline number one, Ola CEO Bhavish Agarwal has confirmed their plans to ship the Ola electric scooter to the US by early 2022. Ola has announced two products for the Indian market, which include the S1 Pro at 1.3 lakh rupees as well as Ola S1 at 1 lakh rupees. Now, Ola claims that bookings have poured in from over 1,000 cities and the company plans to start delivering to all locations simultaneously. Well, headline number two, reports suggest that e-commerce player Snapdeal is weighing options to raise as much as $400 million via an IPO, and this could value the company to as much as $2.5 billion. Now, discussions are still in early stages, and Snapdeal will be joining other new age tech startups who are also reportedly looking to take the IPO route, and these include PhonePe, MobiKwik, Grofers, as well as Delivery. Well, the final headline of the day, digital lending platform Refin is looking to raise around $40 million through debt and equity by the end of this financial year. The platform focuses on loans for electric small commercial vehicles and has financed over 2,300 to 2,400 EVs so far. With this potential fundraise, it wants to accelerate its lending. On to our second segment, I have with me someone who's just been launching a lot of reports of late, and the latest report is a jobs report which is alluding to the fact that jobs and the whole hiring scenario has been back to pre-pandemic levels. To discuss more on this, I have with me Sashi Kumar from Indeed. Thank you very much, Sashi, for joining us today on the Daily Dispatch. I want to begin by asking you a little bit about the report that you put out. You said hiring is back to pre-pandemic levels. So tell us where, are we seeing green shoots as far as hiring is concerned?
Thank you, Priya, for having me. It's wonderful being on this interview. Yes, the good news is that as of September, we have hiring activity higher than Feb of 2020, which was really when the pandemic hit us, and we are already 8% ahead of Feb 2020. A lot of the hiring is primarily driven by the IT sector and software jobs. This is essentially an outcome of the pandemic-induced digitization of our economy. And this is significantly driving the new jobs that are coming up. The second area where we've seen an increase, though it hasn't come back to the pre-pandemic levels, we are seeing areas of the consumption economy like food and retail sectors, which have seen a significant improvement in the hiring activity. For the food industry, it's about 52% up, and retail is 39% up from the previous year, though we are still not back to pre-pandemic levels. The other interesting thing we are seeing is an increased focus on hygiene and sanitation. So jobs related to hygiene and sanitation have also grown significantly since last year. We've seen a 60% increase in jobs in housekeeping, executive housekeepers, cleaners, etc. That's gone up by about 60% year on year.
Right, Sashi, I want to talk to you specifically about the festive season, which is just around the corner. We're seeing reports saying that, logistics companies are hiring in a big way, and so are e-commerce companies because demand expectations this time around are much higher than last year. So give us some sense as to what kind of postings are you seeing on the website? Are you seeing more such festive-related postings happening at this point?
So every year, we do see a bump in logistics, retail, level roles that are coming up, and that's something which we've also spoken about, right? Some of that increase in retail openings are driven by the fact that we have the festival season right around the corner, and we have been seeing significant interest in delivery roles as well in the last couple of months, and I expect that will continue well into the festive season, starting now to the end of the year.
Give us a perspective as to how this year is different from what we've seen last year, because I'm sure you've been looking at the postings all across this period, in the middle of the peak pandemic to now. What really has changed according to you?
So I think what has changed was driven by the societal and the government response. When the pandemic first hit us in March, of 2020, we saw a complete shutdown of the economy. And that meant that hiring activity drastically fell. But what happened in the second wave, which was significantly worse from a medical standpoint, from a personal standpoint, all of us had friends or family who were impacted by COVID in this second wave. But the complete economy didn't shut down. We had some parts of the country which had a complete shutdown, but there were other parts that were open. And even in places which were very severely impacted by the pandemic, not everything shut down. We had sectors that were open. So what that meant was in 2021, at the peak of the pandemic, which was April to June, we didn't see a significant loss of jobs as compared to March of 2020.
Right, Sashi, I want to talk to you a little bit about how salaries have moved over the last couple of months. Are you seeing companies being able to offer much more over the last few months? Do you think that that's a trend where we're seeing some bump up as far as salaries are concerned?
So there is no uniformity as far as salaries are concerned, Priya. Salary is an outcome of demand and supply. So where there is high demand for labor and there's a relative labor shortage, we see salaries increasing. In the case in point, IT. I'm sure you would have seen some of these fantastic advertisements that came out that said you've got a BMW or a bike or some car, etc., being offered for people who are joining. So we've seen significant increases in pays where demand is high and there is some sort of a supply gap. But there are sectors where jobs are scarce even now. For example, construction and some of the aviation, even hospitality to some extent, where obviously there are jobs, but the remuneration is not perhaps as attractive as it used to be.
I want to talk to you specifically about the blue collar segment in terms of, what kind of traction are we seeing there as far as the whole job front and postings are concerned?
In the blue collar segment, we are seeing specific demand for roles which are related to the e-commerce economy. What we've seen over the last 1 year or even slightly more than 1 year is a significant increase in the role of e-commerce in all our lives. So people who are in logistics, people who are doing the last mile delivery, we've seen a significant increase in the number of jobs. And a lot of these jobs also happen to be gig in the sense that they may not be permanent roles. They are mostly roles which you could choose where you work. For example, I start work at 5 a.m. in the morning till 12, and then I go on to do something else, etc. So we've seen a significant increase in those roles over the last year and a half.
I also want to talk to you a little bit about, the way forward, because at this point in time, while we're speaking, we also have so many viewers out here who are perhaps job seekers. So from your perspective at Indeed, are there specific categories that you'd be adding onto your platform? What kind of technology or any product features would you be adding on which will help job seekers going forward?
No, absolutely. So one thing is we are mostly sector agnostic, right? So if you're a job seeker, you can find all kinds of jobs available irrespective of which sector you're looking for, so long as those jobs exist, so long as people are hiring for those roles. For us at Indeed, the focus has been how do we dramatically collapse the time taken for a person being interested in a job to getting to the interview. So that's something which we are focusing on. How do we ensure that we reduce that time? And we are working on certain products which will help us get there. Specifically a product called Indeed Hiring Platform that's under development, which will help dramatically reduce the amount of time it takes for a job seeker to look at a job, get interested in it, do research, apply for it, get screened, assessed, and then interviewed for the job in as less amount of time as possible as compared to previously.
Final question before I let you go, Sashi, in terms of job postings and the kind of growth that we expect going forward, if you could give our viewers some perspective in terms of what postings have grown by, if there's a percentage that you can share with us, and a future outlook in terms of what kind of growth in postings do you expect going forward?
So we've seen broadly an 8% increase in the number of roles available in September as compared to Feb of 2020. And the reason we look at Feb of 2020 is that was the last month prior to the pandemic. So which means we are in a significantly good shape in the sense that at least we have more openings now as compared to when the pandemic hit us. Obviously, like I said, a significant amount of interest is being driven by the IT sector. We are still seeing some contraction in sectors which are services oriented, where there is a lot of physical proximity involved, like aviation, like hospitality, etc. But sectors which are in the services, which have been able to use technology to ensure that there is seamless delivery of their service without human contact, have seen some recovery. For example, food. We've seen a 32% increase year on year on food related roles. That's because a lot of restaurants, a lot of caterers, etc., have been able to adjust and ensure that they're still able to serve their customers without customers actually having to visit restaurants. We have seen this impact even the financial sector, where we've seen a significant increase in fintech roles because they enable people not having to get in touch with others to be able to deliver a service. So that's something which we can watch out for. But I think we will see a secular recovery in jobs once we are able to stabilize our situation with regard to the pandemic. We have seen significant improvement in the last couple of months. If we are able to write this out well, I'm sure 2020, end of 2021 and the beginning of 2022 will herald a new sort of chapter for all of us who are looking for jobs or looking for employment and the opportunities that are available in the market.
All right. On that note, Sashi, thank you very much for joining us today on the Daily Dispatch and for giving us a perspective of the labor market and the kind of expectations that we can expect going forward. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you so much for being a part of the show.
Well, time now to wrap up this edition of the Daily Dispatch. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll catch you tomorrow at 5 p.m. Goodbye and have a lovely day.